Hi, I'm Bill Arnold. Thank you for listening to this podcast of Real Recovery. There are many more podcasts available at myfaithradio.com. Your support makes this possible. Thank you. Welcome to Real Recovery. So glad you joined us tonight. Bill Arnold on this side of the studio, and just across the way, George P. Fraser. Hello, George.
Hey, Bill, I feel like we're closer tonight than we usually are. I mean,
physically, emotionally, spiritually, what are you referring to,
we're
George?
just tied in here tonight. I'm really looking forward to the
we're
show.
in a different studio, for starters. But we're also, in proximity, we are closer, which makes me...
worried, aren't you?
Well, worried, troubled, maybe. It's a bunch of that all at once. Yeah,
it's a test.
Yeah. Anyway, we got a great show tonight. I'm so glad if you're just tuning in. We've got a incredible story. Steve and Allie are going to join us in just a few minutes. But, George, as always, before we get things started with our guests, we always like to cover a step. Do you have a step in mind for
I always
tonight?
like to go to step 3. And, of course, all these steps are important. We can't neglect any. And they're not linear, Bill, where we do one, cross it off, go to 2, cross it off. A lot of times we go back to step 1. I know for me, when I work on my anger, my lust, my greed, my sloth, I have to go to step 1 because I'm powerless over that without God's help. And we go to John 15:5, apart from me, you can do nothing. But step 3 is we admit we're powerless over our life, and in step 1. And then we made a decision in step 3 to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understand Him. And, of course, we understand Him to be Jesus Christ. John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And what you do when you do this step, Bill, it's not a small undertaking. It's not a one and done, I'll take Jesus for 500, Alec, and that's good. You're making a decision to turn your life over to Christ. You get out of the decision-making business when you do this step. What would God have me do? That's our first thought. And we have a prayer about offering ourselves to God, praying that He lifts our selfishness and helps us overcome our difficulties so people will see the witness of, wow, this guy's different. It must be God doing it, which He is. And really what we're doing is we've decided with our problems, we are no longer going to live for ourselves. We need the help of God. But where we see a lot of people fall short, and I know I do, I want Jesus to be my Savior, Bill, but having Him being Lord over my life, over all areas of my life, well, that's another deal. And as you work towards holiness, sanctification, you realize the 12 steps are a really good way, Bill, of dealing with every problem you have spiritually. And basically every problem we have is because we're not walking in God's will. Even the bad stuff that happens to us, I had cancer, accepting that and walking, God, what would you have me do with this? That's how you get victory that only comes from Christ.
So good, George. All right. Let's just look at step 3 one more time. We made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. I always think of Romans 12:1 that says, therefore, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship.
I love that.
And when you are turning yourself over, your body as a living sacrifice, you are not going to be doing your past life.
Well, the reason you do it, and I went back to step 1 when I started this, is you're powerless and unmanageable. You come in step 2 and go, hey, God can help me with this. And 3, you make the decision, Bill, to not just do it on your problem areas. God, take all of me, because apart from you, I can do nothing. And always when we have these stories, you're going to hear what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And you don't want to miss this. A lot of times we lose hope, but that's because you've lost God.
And also, if you are finding yourself reluctant to get into a group, reluctant to take that first step, or if you are feeling anxious, first of all, you want to take all these anxious fears and feelings to God and leave them at the foot of the cross, and then find the courage to take that step to get into a place of community where you can reveal your issue about yourself, because I think that's when the freedom comes.
Oh, sure, you get the support, and you see people that have done it. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. But our natural tendency is, I can do this myself.
Always.
Well, that's kind of what got me in there in the first place. Your best thinking got you into recovery. And so what we want to do is rely on Christ. And we think, well, I'll give him my drink problem, but I'm going to keep my sex, my gambling. I'm going to do that, the movies I watch, my lifestyle, but I'll have him help me get sober. You're going to miss the best part, because really what happens is God has things for you to do, and that's to take what he did in you and offer that to other people is the best part, I think, of Christianity and recovery.
And George, I've heard from many, many people, including you, many, many times, that recovery groups and the community in them are really fun.
Totally.
And, isn't that one of the big fears, is that if I stop using, stop drinking, stop doing drugs, that I won't have fun anymore?
Well, the other thing is, that is totally true. That was my big one. And I always say your recovery has to be more fun than you're using.
Yep.
I have a certain person I work with named Tom, where we've had to reel that back in a few times. But the joy that's there in recovery, you don't want to miss.
No, I agree. Well, we're looking forward to hearing Steve and Allie tell their story. And we're going to take a little break. And if you are brand new to Real Recovery, we're so glad you visited today. And you can learn more about us at myfaithradio.com. Check it out. We're going to take a very short break. George and I will be right back in just a minute. Welcome back to Real Recovery. Bill and George. George, we got the dynamic duo in tonight. This is exciting.
Could be a good show. Definitely, yeah.
I can't wait. Steve, Allie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, this is a delight. And recently you had a chance to attend a pretty spectacular KTIS event with Susie Larson.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how this whole ball got started.
Yep.
Very exciting. So anyway, we're very curious to hear stories, and we love stories of transformation, and I know you've got some amazing ones. I don't know which of you want to start, but let me get some background. Go ahead, Allie, why don't you begin?
Okay. Well, I am 51 years old, and my recovery journey started for me November 29th, 2013, which means I have almost 12 years of sobriety right now under my belt, but it actually started before that. Technically, I went to the family program at Hazelton for my ex-husband, and that's when I got my first taste of what it would be like to get some help for family problems and his drinking. But where it all started for me, I'll just do a quick run through. I grew up in Hastings, and it was me and my younger brother and my mom and dad. And when I was 15 years old, I'll just jump real quick. I had a bad experience at a party. It was my second time ever drinking. And I went with my then boyfriend, who was older than me, to a party. I said I was babysitting and lied, and found myself there with a bunch of people that I went to school with. And he kept handing me drinks, and I started getting drunk. And we had already discussed that I did not want to have sex with him. And he had agreed that that was okay. And as one thing led to another, he left me with a group of people in a room. I didn't know where he went. And I went to go to the bathroom, and he grabbed me and raped me. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because that wrecked me for a long time. Didn't know how to deal with it. Tried some counseling. My parents found out about it. Didn't want to do counseling, didn't want to do anything with them. I kind of didn't really get along well with them either. And I went through a couple different relationships. It just kept affecting me, as obviously that would anybody. Didn't know how to deal with it except to turn to drugs and alcohol. And so my drinking career began pretty much that day. And I kept it up. I first started with just alcohol, smoked a little pot, and then got into more harder drugs. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse until I decided, after my ex-husband had quit drinking, that maybe I did too. I think actually he had went back out again. And I decided a year after he had tried to quit that I was going to try, because I had tried 3 months on my own, and that wasn't working for me. I was white-knuckling it, and it was miserable. And I decided to call Hazelden, the same place that he had been attending the year before. And the person that picked up the phone said, "Hey, Allie, do you remember me?" And I said, "No." And it was, by the way, that was the heaviest phone I've ever had to pick up in my life. It was the hardest call I've ever had to make by far. But I knew I did not want to drink again, but I didn't know how to not drink again, even after 3 months of not doing it. So he said, "Do you remember who I am?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, welcome back." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, I talked to you when you called for help for your husband a year ago. Whoa. And I asked you if you needed help at that time, and you said no. And I had told you that most people, if they're with that, significant other that does the same thing, most likely you do too. And if you ever need help, to call back. And so I'm so glad to hear your voice. And I was like, what in the world?
Wow. That's impressive.
That was one of many, I used to call them God things that, I didn't know what to call it at that time. My relationship with God at that point was nil. I mean, just next to nothing. And I didn't even know what a higher power was until I got into Alcoholics Anonymous. And so anyway, I started the next day, because once you call, they realize, you're probably going to back out if you don't go the next day. So he's
totally,
we're starting tomorrow. I was like, no, we're not, and he's like, yeah, you're starting tomorrow. So I worked my job, which was a full-time job, with my children, taking care of them, and going 2 or 3 days a week to outpatient. And so I would drive right from Minneapolis to St. Paul and go there at night. And then on the weekend, they had a family day. I think it was Saturdays. So I did that for, I don't even remember, a couple months, and much needed. I remember the first meeting we had, the first day of treatment, and we all sat in a circle, and it got to me, and that was the first day that I said, "My name is Allie, and I'm an alcoholic." And that was a changing point. To just say it out loud was so freeing and powerful. I didn't feel shame at that moment like I'd felt for my entire life. And so that was the beginning for me of how it started. How it kept going is unbelievable. And this is where God truly comes in. I ended up getting a sponsor, because they pushed that right away in treatment. And I still have her to this day. She's the best sponsor anybody could ever have. She said, you got to start going to meetings. And actually, Hazelden said, you got to start going to meetings. That's how I met her. They pushed women's meetings at first, which was really important for me because of what had happened to me. And now I understand it. So I started with a women's meeting. I met my sponsor shortly after that. She was running the meeting that I used to go to. And I kept going to women's meetings, but at the women's meetings that I started to go to, they said, we have a co-ed meeting. It's on such and such a night. It's a topic meeting. It's really fun. You'll really like it. It's really laid back. And I was like, oh, that sounds fun, less structure, and you can talk about what you want, and great. So I said, I'll be there. So I showed up at that meeting, and they were going to start the meeting. And, there's a bunch of stragglers that always come in at the very last minute. And there was one chair left, and it was sitting next to me. And in walked the guy that raped me all those years ago when I was 15 years old. And I was 39 at this point. So I was not expecting that. It was my second meeting ever. I had went to one women's meeting and then that meeting the next day. He sat down next to me, and right away you stand up and at this meeting you say the Lord's Prayer, and you have to hold the person's hand that's next to you. And I did it. And I didn't know at that point, I was kind of having an out-of-body experience. Like, do I run? Do I just run screaming? What do I do? Why is this happening? God, I am trying to do the right thing, and you're placing this man next to me. So I sat through that meeting, which was the longest meeting of my entire life, and I just wanted to get out of there. And I had some friends there, and I just said, can you stay back with me? I'm afraid to leave the parking lot unless somebody's with me. I was just mortified. And somebody walked me to my car, and on the way home, which was just a few blocks away, I just broke down crying, and I didn't know what to do. I was still going to treatment, and they had given us a phone number list of everybody that we could call that was in our group, because at that point you didn't know a lot of people in recovery. So I just went down and I called this girl, and I said, I got to tell you the story, and I don't know why God's doing this to me, but I was angry. I was like, I'm trying to do the right thing, and this guy's now back in my life, and what am I supposed to do? And she said, I remember laying on my bed. I can remember exactly where I was, and she said, I don't know why this is happening, but I know that God is doing this for a reason, and at some point you're going to figure out why. But do not stop, because I said, I want to drink right now. And she said, do not stop going to meetings. You don't have to go to that meeting, but just don't stop, and please come back to treatment. Don't drop out of treatment. I said, all right. And she said, I just look for signs. Just look for signs. And I thought, what do you mean, look for signs? She hung up the phone. I got ready for work the next day. It was all I could to get myself to work. And I remember I got 2 blocks from home, and I'm driving down, and I turned on KQRS. I always listen to that in the morning, Tom Bernard or whatever it was. And they said, the DJ said, this is going out to the group from Hazelden. And they played some song on there. And I thought, that's weird, but then I thought, this is kind of what she's talking about, I think. And then things like that kept happening. And anyway, I get to the end of treatment. I've been going back to meetings now. I'm doing the right thing, and I'm proud of myself. And I always stopped at this McDonald's that was before I got to treatment, between work and treatment, and to grab a little something to eat before that night's, otherwise I'd starve before I'd get home. And so I stopped at the McDonald's to grab something to eat. This was the day that we were going to graduate and get our first token. And it was a huge deal to me, and graduate and go on and do whatever you're going to do. And I'm sitting in the McDonald's, and I'm eating by myself. And all of a sudden I got a Facebook Messenger message. And I thought, who's this? And I didn't recognize it. And it was him. The person who raped me. He found me, and now I'm creeped out. I'm thinking, I'm starting to shake and sweat, and this is right before I'm supposed to go get my medallion, my final, treatment meeting and everything, and I thought, what does he want? And I read this novel he wrote me. He apologized. He said he'd had, can't even remember how many years of sobriety, and his last amend was to me. And he had been looking for me for years. And the first thing that note said was, is this Allie so-and-so from Hastings? I think I was in a meeting with you. I thought it was you, and I didn't get a chance to talk to you, afterwards, which I wouldn't have been able talk to him, so that happened the way it was supposed to. And he went on about his entire life, and he had joined the military and and he had a daughter, and I just couldn't see anything but anger. And then on top of it all, I thought, how dare you? Now my night's ruined that, I'm supposed to be great for me and all the work I've done to get to this point and get this token. And I went to that meeting, and everybody could see I was shook up. I mean, it was literally like 15 minutes later, I had to show up like nothing was wrong, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And I ended up telling everybody, because that's what I do. And I've learned that through my sponsor, the most important thing you can do is be as honest as you can, because the truth will set you free. And everything before that was a lie. Everything. I lied about everything when I was sick. And I can't be more truthful. And so I just blurted out everything that happened, and people were like, it just happened now. What? Just now? What? Yeah, 15 minutes ago. And they couldn't believe it. But if I wouldn't have got that out, I had to just tell somebody right then and there. And I just told like 25 people. One of the best things I ever did. And then I couldn't wait to jump in the car and tell my sponsor. But I still didn't know how I was going to deal with all that. There was still a bunch of crap. I'd never dealt with it. Yeah, he apologized, but it's like I can't accept that for an apology. I couldn't at the time. So me and my sponsor got together, and what we decided we were going to do is I was going to meet with a therapist, because I was also seeing a therapist for everything that I'd grown up with and stuff that had happened. And I was going to talk to her about what I should do. She decided that I should start a journal and just take my time. Don't respond to him. I did not respond to him at all. Started journaling. I journaled for I don't know how many months, weeks, whatever. Every single thing and what he did to me, how it affected me. And I got it all out. It took forever. And then she said, reach out to him, and you're going to give this to him. And I thought, are you serious? I met him before a meeting on purpose so that I could just hand it to him and then rush off to a meeting with my sponsor. He met me at a Holiday gas station. I walked up to him, and he said, anything you want. I'll do anything you want. And I said, you just take this. I don't want it back. It's yours now. It's not mine. It's not mine anymore. And that was that. So that's why it happened.
Wow, what a start. Thank you for that incredible transparency. Allie, we're going to take a little break. You're listening to Real Recovery with Bill and George. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Real Recovery with Bill and George. We have quite a story here tonight, George.
I'm really impressed with the courage and strength God gave you, not only to tell this, but to stay at the meeting and then go to graduation. Bill, a lot of us, when we're early in recovery, we're not real sure we want to do this for the rest of our lives. The Bible talks about that don't worry about tomorrow. Each day has enough trouble of its own, Matthew 6:34. But it's real easy to do when you're looking for an escape, and you stayed at both. And where we wound up is you wrote your journal at your great sponsor's suggestion, and you gave it to this person. Was that the end of your connection there with this person?
Yeah, it basically was. He took it back to his sponsor, he said, and they worked on that. And he just felt a lot of guilt because I was angry. At that point, I was just rattling off anything I could that, to kind of hurt him back is what I wanted to do. And looking back, since then, this is tough, but I have forgiven him for me. And for me. And I have to do that in order to stay sober. That's a huge part of my sobriety.
Yep.
I like to say drinking for me is not an option anymore. anything that's wrong in my life, drinking's going to make a whole lot worse. And if I keep that front and center, I'm not going to drink again. So yeah, I basically blocked him after that because my therapist said, you don't need to talk to him anymore. You've done enough. You've given him that. He can do what he wants with it. So I went on to basically I was going to be fired from my job when I went into treatment. I was on an action plan and I had one chance left. I was an underwriter for a big bank, and I had lost my authority, and I had to test case back in order to gain my authority back, which was a huge deal. I could not make one mistake. So I knew they were serious, and they didn't know what was going on. I was keeping that, behind me that I was in treatment. So I ended up test casing back. I regained my authority. I got a promotion to the next level underwriter, kept my job there for 15 years. And it was in mortgage, so I got laid off. But that was the start of a long career in finance for me. And I kept in the program. I kept married to the person I was with. My sponsor kept saying, you can't make any rash decisions in the first year of recovery. And I was like, okay, whatever. I was going to listen to whatever she had to say because I wanted what she had. And I was going to do whatever marching orders she gave me. I did them because I just God gave that to me. Like, you need to listen to this woman because look at how happy she is. And you want that. And you've never been that happy. So I did everything she said. I kept doing it. I kept doing it. I kept doing it. I kept going to meetings. I got into the recovery community. They do other things besides meetings. We actually have fun. I learned that I could have fun without drinking. And
that is huge.
It's huge.
That's our big fear, isn't it?
That's the biggest fear of why you don't reach out for help is you think you can't do anything without drinking. Everything revolves around drinking or drugs. And once you figure that out, just real quick, she had me do my 4-step, which a lot of people don't like doing that step, in front of a nun at St. Kate's that was a recovering alcoholic. Best thing ever. I just let that lady have it. And she was one of us. So for me, it was just like me to you talking. And I laid out every single thing I could possibly think of that I'd ever done because I thought, I'm going to do it right, and I'm going to do it right now. And I'm not balking at this. A lot of people balk at the 4-step. That's huge not to, because that's how you get better. Correct. The more honest you are with yourself, you can put that stuff behind you. So that was a great moment as well. And long story short, I had 2 children with my ex-husband, and we tried it. We were together because of drinking. That is why we were together in the first place. And I glommed onto him right away because he ran a nightclub, and we were off to the races. And then we had kids, and we continued, sadly, until my kids were like about 10 and 12. So they can remember mom sober, or they can remember me mom drinking, and they can remember me now sober, which is also a great gift that I gave them. At first, I was ashamed of it for a long time. But for them to be able to see that there is 2 lives and you don't have to do it that way, I hope I broke that chain in our family. So I ended up divorcing my ex-husband after almost 20 years of marriage. And there was a lot of anger there with my kids till we figured all that out. And I just trusted in God again and thought it's going to get better. And it did. And I just found out a couple weeks ago, that my ex-husband is now 5 years sober himself.
Nice.
And he told my kids that, and I reached out to him and congratulated him. And we are now in a civil relationship because of our children. Not a relationship, but just civil to each other. And, graduations and stuff, we can share that now, thank God, with them because they deserve that. And then I went on to have about a 3-year relationship with another man who was in recovery and needed to do that and learned more about myself. Finally got to the point where that I could finally understand what my sponsor was saying about you need to love yourself. I could never grasp that. How do you love yourself? What are you talking about? I can love other people. How do I know if I'm loving myself? I tipped a motorcycle over trying to learn how to ride a motorcycle in a class. I took care of myself. All of a sudden, it clicked. I'm loving myself. I'm actually getting to that spot. That was another huge moment for me. We broke up, me and that boyfriend of 3 years, and I was ready to be on my own. Didn't care. I got off all the online, trying to find somebody and all that. And I thought, I'm okay with myself. And then all of a sudden, Steve came into my life and I wasn't looking, but we'd been friends. Didn't really know. We just kind of stepped off that cliff together and went on a first date. And yeah. Can take it from there if you want.
Are you introducing Steve right now?
Yeah, I guess I am.
Let's hold Steve for a minute. I wanted to ask you a question. You're going to 12-step meetings, probably working with other people, mentoring them.
Yeah.
You have a mentor. Were you going to church too? Were you in Bible studies or anything? So
when I was growing up, my parents had me going to Sunday school, but they weren't attending the church that I went to, but I had to go. I did not like that. I didn't understand why they weren't going to church, but I had to go to Sunday school. I actually got kicked out of confirmation.
I did too.
Yay.
Great. I've never heard anybody else who did that. Now I feel good.
Yeah. So that's where that ended, when I got kicked out of confirmation. So I always had this icky feeling about church. I always felt uncomfortable there. I always worried about what other people were thinking of me there. It was just, I didn't like it. My sponsor started having me go to church with her. We actually went to Crossroads in Cottage Grove and Woodbury. And I hated it. She would drag me in there kicking and screaming. She would drag me up to the front even. Again, you have to see this person face to face. Don't be sitting in the back or you're not going to pay attention. Okay, yep, I'd get there for Easter, whatever, holidays. And then I started dating that boyfriend, and he brought me to Eagle Brook in Woodbury. And I thought, this place is even bigger than Crossroads. Really uncomfortable. Kept going. Gradually, it became smaller. And before that relationship ended, right before it did, I had made the decision that I wanted to be baptized in front of that church because I had to wipe away all the crap, like really get rid of it. And I did that. It was Super Bowl Sunday a few years ago. And I was baptized. Shortly after that, we broke up. But I could feel that was a new beginning. And that's when Steve walked into my life.
I like that new beginning. Steve, welcome to the show.
Wow.
Well, yeah, wow is right. Follow that.
I should have won first.
You should have gone first. You're a smart man. Well, we'd love to hear a little bit about your story, and we want to spend some time hearing the both of you together, your story as a team. But I'd like to hear a little of your story, too.
Okay, well, I can do that.
In 19 seconds, start.
My name is Steve, and I'm going to introduce myself as an alcoholic and an addict, and Allie's husband.
Awesome.
Hi, Steve.
Hello. Pleasure to be here, by the way. And I just wanted to say, wow, I love hearing my wife's story. Even the pain from the past, because it's made her who she is today, and I get to love her every day. So, anyways, that's enough mushy stuff. But so let's see. For my story, I went to a Catholic grade school, and this was back in the 70s, and was raised Catholic, and for those that were in Catholic grade schools back in the 70s, there was a lot of Old Testament, and it was a lot of God was a punishing God in my eyes, and at least that was what I picked up on. And then, of course, as I got older, I had loving parents, but they got divorced when I was 15, and at that time I thought it didn't bother me, but it bothered me immensely, and I chose to pick up alcohol and drugs at that time. And the minute I picked up, I was off to the races. I liked it, I enjoyed it, and there wasn't enough. And I of course, started getting into quite a bit of trouble. And I like to share parts of my story because they don't have any power over me anymore. It's my story. It's my past. And I know my God has forgiven me, and I've forgiven myself. And that's the beauty of the kind and the loving God that is my God now. I actually burglarized and vandalized the grade school and the church that I went to as a child, as a young boy. And so that was my line between me and my God at that time. I jokingly in my head thought that when I get old, I'll become an usher and then I'll be good with, God before, at that time. And for 25 years, after that, I ran hard with alcohol and drugs. Very destructive lifestyle. And it's, I look back now and, I have 4 wonderful daughters. And, at that time I had one and then another with my high school sweetheart. I didn't really know how to be a dad. I was an addict, to be honest. That's what I was. And that's all I knew how to be. And, for me, when I picked up at 14, 15 years old, and I used for 25 years until I was 39. That's another thing Allie and I have in common. We both sobered up at 39. I'm just a bit older than she is. But we had it was a very destructive lifestyle, and I cheated death so many times. And my mom was trying to get me sober all the time, and she put me in some treatments, and there was actually an inpatient 14-day lockup in St. Mary's in Minneapolis. And
that's hardcore.
Yes. And
did you get cured?
No, I did not. I convinced about 14 other kids to break out of there with me. And so we broke out of there, and we ran in the middle of winter, and we ran down to the Mississippi River, and a few of them wanted to swim across it to get away. And I said, no, we will die.
Oh, so sounds like Alcatraz.
So luckily we didn't attempt to swim, and we went back and faced the music. But I bring that up because that was my introduction to that, to the fact that I might have a problem. But I definitely convinced myself that I didn't have a problem. And like I say, I ran for the next 25 years down the dark path of addiction. And by the grace of God, I can say it now, but I had gotten married and I was getting a divorce. And I say by the grace of God now because what I thought was the worst thing that ever could have happened to me ended up being the best thing because it got me sober. My intent was to prove my ex-wife wrong, of course. And in the meantime, what I did was I got sober. And after a while, I realized that, with God's grace, I was able to put one day in front of the other, And eventually I started to get a little bit of serenity. And I went to First Step meetings 2 to 3, 4 times a week. And I always went to a First Step meeting. And because I needed to hear other people's stories because I knew what my story was. But I always would change my story after my life got a little bit back on track. And so, needless to say, I've had some tough go in sobriety. Life is not easy. Life is not easy sober. But I did. I have stayed sober for a number of days now, and because of that, I'm able to live happy, joyous, and free. I'm able to be a son to my mother and father, a father to my 4 daughters, a grandfather to our 6 grandkids, and a great-grandfather to my granddaughter.
Oh, you're way too young. All right, we're going to take a little break and be right back. You're listening to Real Recovery. Don't go anywhere. We'll finish with Steve and Allie in just a minute. Welcome to Real Recovery. If you've been with us to this point, you know this is an amazing story. And if you've missed any of it, make sure you hear it from the beginning. Go to the podcast at myfaithradio.com. All right, George, this is amazing.
Really hear God in this story.
Yes, you do.
Loudly.
Yes. So I want to get to the point now where we're starting to find out what God has Steve and Allie to do together as a team to further the kingdom and help other alcoholics and drug addicts.
I think first they had to get together, though, don't they, in the story?
Yeah, in the story.
Well, I can take it from there. So I had decided I wanted to ride motorcycle, and my sponsor is huge into motorcycles. She's in a riders group, and she's always told me about how fun it is, and I've ridden on the back of hers for many, many times. And I thought, I'm going to do this, and it was something I always wanted to try. So I took a motorcycle. First, I had to get my permit. Went and got my permit, tested out. I got my permit. But big mistake. I didn't practice at all on any kind of motorcycle. I just thought I could take a class. I was the oldest person in that class by far. It was a cool, crisp spring day when I thought it would be warmer. It was 32 degrees and snowing outside when they decided to still have the class. So picture me on the motorcycle, get on with a big group of people, don't even get anything done but my kickstand up, and I turned the wheel sideways and tipped the Harley or Honda or whatever it was on top of myself and went down in front of everybody in a big pile with the motorcycle on top of me. So I got extremely hurt by that. I was bruised. I was, ego bad, bleeding. I tried to continue because I'm not a quitter, except when it comes to drugs and alcohol. So I kept trying, and I thought, I can't feel my hands. I'm freezing. I'm bleeding. I can't do this. And it's okay to just tell her I'm done for the day. So I told the instructor, and she said, I understand. And I left. And I had things hadn't been going well for me. I had broke up with that boyfriend. I had just tipped my bike over. Didn't really know what I was doing with my life at that point, and I just honestly cried so hard on the way home that I had to pull over on Highway 61 because I was sobbing hysterically. I finally made it home. My daughter was staying with me at the time, and she was in the house, and I just didn't even want to go in the house and tell her that I had quit something that I would really had been wanting to do because I wanted to show her that I could do it. And so I was feeling like a failure, feeling sorry for myself. So I sat in my garage, pulled the car in. I called a friend in recovery who was also a rider. And I told her the whole story. I'm sobbing. She can barely understand. She's like, calm down, and it's going to be okay. And you're going to walk into your house, and you're going to be fine. And, your daughter's going to see it's okay. You fell. It's obvious why you quit. You can always go back to it. Just take a deep breath and keep going. So I finally get the courage to go in. My daughter's like, what are you doing here? And are you okay? I'm bleeding all over. And she said, just call your sponsor, Mom. Why don't you call your sponsor? And I thought, fine. Okay, I called my sponsor. She says, Allie, you're going to heal first. You're going to heal every bruise, everything. Take a break. You don't need to do this right now. They'll hold your money at the class and da-da-da. But what I want you to do, the next time before you start a class like that, you need to practice on a motorcycle in a parking lot. And I said, oh, great. Will you help me with that? Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I want you to help me. She said, I'd love to, honestly. But I don't think I'm strong enough. If you were to fall again and tip that motorcycle, I wouldn't be able to hold you up. But I know someone who would. Why don't you call Steve?
Is this where you come in, Steve?
And that's where Steve comes in. And I thought, oh, I don't know. I'm embarrassed and I'm still upset. She said, call him right now or you're never going to call him. I said, fine. I call him. I'm still trying not to cry at this point. And, I get 2 sentences in and I just talked to my sponsor and she said to call you and this is what happened. And he's like, what? Calm down. And I told him and, he's like, yeah, of course we can do that. And so we'll plan a day when, call me when you're healed up and stuff. So we had a good discussion and I felt a little better. And I did. I let myself heal and I loved myself better. And there was a night I used to go to a Friday night meeting and he went to the same meeting and he texted me and he's like, are you going to the Friday night meeting? And I said, I'm not, it's not in me tonight. I don't feel it. I got some stuff to do. And he said, well, if you're not going, I'm not going. And I thought, okay. Oh, are we buds now or what?
I was trying to get her to go.
And I didn't want to go. And then I just said, I've got some wood that needs to be cut, and I was going to burn it in my backyard, and I can't do it by myself, and I've been waiting to find somebody that can help me with this wood. Would you want to come over? And he said, sure. And I hung up, and then I thought, I'm hungry. I'm sure he wouldn't mind if we just went out to eat either, let's find a place. So I texted him back, or I called him back, or whatever it was, and I said, can we go out to eat before that? Yeah, that's fine. So we pick a place, and we went out to Muddy Cow in Cottage Grove, and it was a May day, and it was like the first day when it was really nice where you could sit out, in Minnesota on the deck or the patio. And so we were out there eating, and my son called, and he wanted something. I don't remember what he wanted, and he said, hey, what are you doing? And I said, I'm on a date. And then I went, oh, no. I just realized what I said. And I could feel my
called
face.
Yourself on it.
Oh, yeah. I called myself, and he just got this big
and of
grin.
I enjoyed that moment.
He loved it. He loved it. And
it gave you some validation, didn't it?
It did, and I got to tease her because I love to tease.
But, that's how we started out. That was our first date back in May.
That's an incredible story. Both of you are been transformed by the power of the gospel, and now God has brought you together for this special time in life that you can walk out your faith and your sober journeys together and help others, and that is remarkable. Thank you for doing the show.
Thanks for having us.
Amazing.
Thank you.
George, what are your closing thoughts?
Well, it's never over. Yeah, but you got to suit up and show up. And God will lead you once you show up. And the resiliency that you had, both of you just kept going. And our timing isn't God's timing, but he always keeps his word and it comes true. Great having you guys on the show.
I want to leave us with something right from Psalm 121. It says, the Lord will keep you from all evil, and he will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. You've been listening to Real Recovery with Bill and George. I certainly hope you've had a great week, and thank you for tuning into the show. And if you can pass this on to someone who would benefit from it, please do. You can go to myfaithradio.com, check out the podcast at Real Recovery. Have a great week. Thanks for listening. Programming like this is made available through your support. Information available at myfaithradio.com.
What in the world is happening in the world? And what's happening in your world? And how do you apply the mind of Christ to that? I'm Carmen LaBerge, host of a podcast called The Reconnect with Carmen LaBerge.
The people listening to your show get such a wonderfully informed perspective on the headlines and what God's doing in the world.
If you feel a disconnect, well, let's reconnect the eternal with the everyday so you can walk your faith into the world that God so loves in ways that honor Jesus.
I love Carmen. She's teaching me a lot on how to have everyday conversations.
There are questions that nag us. Who am I? Where do I fit? And what in the world am I in the world to do?
Boldness in asking the hard questions
regarding very difficult, complicated issues.
Let's get into the Word of God and let the Word of God get into us, applying the mind of Christ to the matters of the day.
Bringing in the Christian viewpoint without getting riled up.
The Reconnect with Carmen LaBerge. Listen wherever you get your podcasts and at myfaithpodcast.com.